So what we have here is a basic horror game. We've got a character that moves around. We can jump up and down, we can move through the environment, we can press F to turn our flashlight off and on, and we can see some other lighting occurring inside a room. So let's have a go at making this. Okay, so we're going to create a new project in Godot, and we're just going to quickly get this set up. So we're going to make a little horror style environment. So first thing we're going to do is go and create a level. So we're just going to set up a 3D scene. Let's just call this level, and we're going to use just a bunch of CSG nodes. So I'm just going to set up a CSG combiner as a group, as a level container, and we're going to add a bunch of other objects to it. I don't want a mesh, I want CSG. I'm just going to keep these as a box. I'm going to turn on some of our snap tools just so we can sort of stretch these out relatively easily. Okay, and we want to snap to grid, make our lives a bit easier. I'm just going to build this into a 10 by 10, not that way. So I've got one sort of panel that is so now our first environment there is our CSG box. We're just going to call this a floor, and we're going to add in some walls. So I'm just going to use another CSG box. I'm just going to drag that one up, and we're going to make our walls too high. Actually, let's make them 3, just so they're a bit bigger than our character. And I'm just going to drag that along. So I've got one wall here, and we're just going to duplicate that, drag it out to the other side, duplicate again, spin ourselves 90, reposition. Okay, we seem to be out a little bit. Just going to use our little shift tool just to line ourselves up nicely. Duplicate again, and now we've got our box. I'm also going to take my floor, duplicate that, and I'm going to set that as a ceiling, and we'll drag that one up to the top. Now I've got a nicely contained room. So I'm going to actually add another child node. I'm going to put a... No, I won't actually. We've got this environment here. Actually, yes I will. CSG combiner. And I'm actually going to move everything into that, and we're going to store that one as a room. I'm just going to duplicate this. So I've got a second room. We're going to stretch it along to the side. Note there's a little bit of overlap here. Now what I want to do is I'm just going to turn off the 2 ceilings just so I can edit this a little bit easier. So we can see our room in here. And what I want to do is we're just going to shrink down the walls so that we can actually see our way through. And we can turn those ceilings back on. And I'm going to take that room again, duplicate it. This time we're going to take it up onto the top. But we probably don't want to have it go all the way through. So I can either stack on top or reuse that floor and ceiling. Once again, I've now got the room on top, so I am going to turn off my ceiling on this one, And I'm also going to turn off the floor just so I can see my way through. And on that room too, let's turn back on that ceiling. So that ceiling is actually still on, but what we're going to do is actually cut into it. So I'm going to add a child node, another CSG box onto this, and we're going to cut a hole into this. So I'm going to stretch that one out. About 4x2, and that should be cutting through the whole thing. So what we're now going to do is use it as subtraction. So I've now got a nice shape in there. Going to duplicate that one, but I'm also going to take it onto the floor of my other shape. It's not there, but I'm going to now drag up that shape, and we can see we can actually go all the way through. Now, just in general, probably as part of room 2, I'm going to add another shape. Let's just try a CSG polygon this time. So what I'm going to do is let's just position it nicely inside this shape. So remember, we can use shift to move around. I'm going to get a side view of this. We might want to turn everything else off just so I can see it. Now, what I want to have happen is this shape here is going to stretch all the way up. So I'm actually going to spin it 90 degrees, pull it forward to me. Let's check it's still in the right position. Yes, it is. So I want this shape, when I edit it, to be a nice set of stairs. And now we can go and stretch that shape or move it. So I don't want to be in edit mode. I'm now just going to stretch it out to be twice as deep. Problem being, I'm actually now still only going nowhere near as high as I need, because I'm actually only hitting the edge. So I need to go back onto my edit mode. And we're going to take that angle up, not just one, but also one higher, so that when I turn all of these parts on, okay, actually that can go down one still. My shape is actually going all the way through. Quite hard to see at the moment, but we will get there. Okay, let's make this little door a little bit narrower. I'm going to go and select this front edge. So it's quite narrow. And we've got our basic level. Inside these, we're going to add some lighting into this first room. So let's jump back to the first room. Let's zoom in on the ceiling. You can see relatively dark, so I am going to, onto the ceiling, add a spotlight. At the moment it's just shining up. Let's have it just shine into one of the corners. And we're just going to add a camera just to see how that works and how it looks. So where's our camera gone? It's just up here. Probably need it inside the level. Let's just see what we can see. So we're going to run it, select the current page, and we're not really seeing too much. But we can see some slight effects down here. Let's go and play around with that spotlight. Just give it a lot more energy. And now we run that, we can see a lot more details. So we've got our camera and our little environment all working. Now we can get rid of this camera. Now we're going to go and create our player character. So we've now got our level, and what we're going to do is now create our player. So we're just going to create a new scene. This time it is going to be use a character body 3D, and we'll just call this player. So we're just going to keep this really simple by adding a 3D collision shape and just a basic mesh instance, which we will set to just be a capsule mesh, and we'll also set the collider to be new capsule shape, so we can see that there. And we're going to add another mesh instance, which will be a cylinder mesh, except this time we're going to shrink that down to 0.1 and say 4mm or 40 centimeters long, and we're just going to position that out on the side and a bit in front, because this is going to be our flashlight. Okay, let's go and add a camera to this. I'm just going to position it about where the head's going to go, and we'll preview that. Yep, we can see it with our flashlight. That flashlight's a little bit too far in front. Let's just bring it back down. Yep, and as a child of that flashlight, we are going to add a spotlight to it. So you can see that's not going in the direction we want, so let's rotate that around, and we're going to make that quite narrow, and actually let's bring the distance in. And just to make this a little bit sort of creepier, we're going to give it a bit of a yellow tinge, so we can sort of see that there. Okay. Now we haven't put any code on our character yet, but let's just take our player and bring them into the level. So we're going to take our player scene and just drag them into our level. I'm just going to bring them out on the front to start with. And let's just run that and see what we see. So we've got our player on there. We're all good. Now let's get some basic movement onto our player. So we're just going to go and attach a script and just use the default 3D basic movement. And I'm not going to worry about anything else at this point. And we've fallen through. That is because on our level container we need to turn on our collisions. So let's go and run this. Sorry if you can hear some background noise. That is just a plane flying overhead, and it's a nice hot day, so we've got the windows open. So we can see our environment, and that light is actually working. Let's see if we can actually get into the room. Okay, so maybe that light's a little bit too small with its spotlight direction, so let's go and fix that up. Why is that not showing? Okay, let's increase that range maybe to 5 meters and have our angle maybe at, let's say, 45 degrees. Ooh, that. Okay, let's just try that out and see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got a bit better of a light, but our character's still a bit big to get through that one wide door. So let's jump in, look at our player, and what I might do is let's just bring our capsule shape and maybe make them 0.4 wide, because that door hole I think was about 1. So now we can jump through and we can see we can get in here. But it looks like we're getting stuck again. So, we've got a character, but we can't actually turn around. So what we're going to do is jump onto our scripts and actually be able to get a character to change the way we're looking at and the angle. So, what we're going to do is add a little bit of script. So, our core parts here, we don't need to worry about. What we're going to add is a new function to handle inputs. So we're just going to, anytime there's an input, whatever event it is, we're going to check to see if that event is input event mouse motion. So if we're moving the mouse, and we'll just leave it with that. There's another thing we can add later, but I'll get to that. We're going to rotate around the y-axis, negative of the event dot relative to our x times, and what I'm actually going to do, haven't set that up yet, but I'm going to set up a variable for our mouse sensitivity, and I'm just going to set that to say 0.02. So this is basically how well much the mouse is going to move when we move up and down, left and right with the mouse. After that, we need to update our camera. So we're going to get the camera 3D, rotate it around the x-axis, and this time we do event dot relative to the y times that mouse sensitivity. So this is just for our spinning, and camera 3D dot rotation around the x-axis. We're going to clamp that so that we don't flip our head back over and over, and we're going to clamp it to a float value. So we're going to get the position. Oh no, sorry, not the. We're going to clamp the rotation x of the camera, and we're going to use the function built in called degrees to radians. So we can look down sort of 70 degrees, and up. So minimum and maximum, and that should not have a negative in front of it. So let's go and test this now. So we've got a camera that can move up and down. Now note, if I move the mouse out of the space, it doesn't sort of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another function on here. So when the game is ready, or when the player loads, we are going to change our mouse mode to be input mode mouse captured. So that basically means the mouse is stuck in this window. And what I can also do with my mouse mode, I can also make sure that this will only work when the mouse mode is set to captured. So it's equal to input. So this is an optional part here. So it means when we add in menus later, this is still going to work. Now at the moment we haven't got any WASD movement, so I'm just going to go to my project settings, input map. I'm going to look at my built-in functions because I've got some built-in functions like UI right, and I'm going to go and add a D onto that. UI left is going to be an A. There's UI up, which I'm going to add a W, and UI down, which I'm going to add an S. So just kind of modified this. So now I can use WASD to move. I can jump in, I can spin around. But we sort of notice that, oh, I'm getting stuck. But no, my flashlight's not moving with my player. So what I'm going to do is we're going to jump back onto my player object, and we're just going to attach the flashlight to be a child of my camera, so that now when I move the camera, the flashlight and light comes with it. So now I've got a good bit of control, and we can see in my model I haven't got enough space to get through here. So level design is really important, so I'm going to jump back into my level. Let's open up that level container. I believe it was the second one. Yep. So we're going to turn off a couple of these walls. There we go, we can see in here now. So let's go and just pick up that little dash there, run through and test. And now I've got my environment, and you can see those walls are still off. We can see that light is still coming from that corner. So that's good. So let's try and turn these walls back on. And run it again. Cool. Cool, so I can fall in here. This angle is now a bit too steep, so I can't actually run up it. But I can see that lighting in that corner, which is good. Now, with the angle being a bit too steep, let's jump back onto my player. And we can look at our floor, our max angle. Let's say we want to be able to run up 70-degree slopes. So now, if I move around, I can fall down here. And because that's still less than 70, I can move up and down. Okay, I want to get rid of this world around the outside, so that's what we're going to look at next, is dealing with our lighting in our level. So what we're going to go and add on now is a world environment to a game, which sort of sets some whole entire environments for the world and our basic sort of settings. So we've got our environment. Okay, let's say we want our background. We're going to have a custom color, let's say black. Let's look at that, and now everything is really dark except for where our lights are. So the whole game gets sort of modified. We can also, in our game, add a directional light. Directional lights work like the sun, and we can sort of set that to be happening from whatever angle we want But we might go, okay, let's make that, this one's energy is just going to be 0.1, so it's really quite dark. It's coming from that top, so we can't really see where we're going until we get the lights on it. Note, it does seem to go through a few other shapes, so you probably don't want to worry about using a directional light. Use some spotlights, particularly if you're working in a horror game. You've got close environments, so think about the angles that you want to use. Light distances, use light to play around with what you want to see, because you can get some quite good little horror effects coming through here. So that's how we can add our core lights. What we might also want to do is be able to turn our flashlight off and on again. So we're just going to jump back to the player. On our script, we're going to go to our project settings. Let's go and add a new action, and we're going to call it flashlight. So if we look at that, we've now got flashlights built in, and I'm just going to code this to F, and we'll jump back onto our script. On our input events, we're going to then check to see if this has happened. So if an event has happened, if the event is an action pressed, and if it's the flashlight action pressed, let's just get it to print it a message to start with. We're just going to toggle the flashlight. We'll just tell it it's going to do that. So we can see in our code that is working, which is brilliant. Let's set it, create a little variable like Boolean flashlight on. We'll set it to be true to start with. Oh, and it needs to be of type flashlight on is true, and we'll set that type to bool. So let's flick this on. So every time we press that button, flashlight on is whatever the opposite is. Now what we also want to do is just flick that Spotlight 3D on and off. One way I can get to that is from the script. I want to go to the camera 3D, flashlight, Spotlight 3D. So I can just do camera 3D / flashlight / Spotlight 3D. There are a lot better ways to do this. And okay, I can't remember what that is off the top of my... Actually, I believe it is visible is assigned to, let's set it to flashlight on. So whatever that status is. So the moment it's on, press F. Oh, we turned off, we're in the dark. Disable it, but we can still see the other one. So we've got a little flashlight that turns off and on. So there's some core elements for a basic horror game with some movement. Hope you enjoy.